think I'm live. What date is today? Today is Sunday at 7:30. Um, and I just said I would do a video because I haven't been able to respond to all of the lovely messages and phone calls and texts that we've been getting from people. Um, so I've been asked to tell people what happened in court on Thursday and what's happening with the criminal case. So I'm going to try and do that now. So we arrived into court on Thursday, and was Thursday, yes. And I had such lovely support. People had come, friends and family had come all the way up, and friends of my daughters as well. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, I went to go into the court, but I wasn't allowed in because I wasn't wearing a mask. So I was told that I had to wait until the end of the list to protect everybody. I don't know what, because nobody was wearing a mask outside the court and they were all stuffed into the waiting room, but then they pull out their dirty mask from their pocket and put it on and comply. But there's absolutely no way that I can wear a mask with the level of trauma that I've gone through. I just cannot and will not ever be able to wear a mask. And I definitely wouldn't be able to wear a mask and speak in court as well. And I don't even understand how a judge, so much of communication is non-verbal, and I just don't even know how barristers are doing their jobs, how solicitors, how witnesses, how a judge is able to do their job without actually seeing the full face of a person. Sometimes those people have their liberty and they could be facing big prison sentences, or they might be being charged with something that they didn't do, and they have to speak from behind this muzzle. It's just beyond my comprehension. And also, if people are, in the case of judges or barristers or solicitors, if they're so frightened of this virus, then I don't know why they're even coming into work, because I don't think the mask is going to protect them at all. It seems to be more of a sign of, are you complying or are you not? And it's very hard to be asked by a system that has put the boot into your face and into your children's face for 14 years to bow down and comply to it. It's pretty nauseating. So we arrived at court, and the first thing that happened was the police, the Garda, Neve Kennedy, who is still claiming to have arrested me, although she knows, and I know, and Anu knows she didn't, because it was actually Garda Owen Finnegan. But anyway, she arrived up and she said that she had to give me 2 more charges. So I was initially arrested for possession of a firearm under Section 30, and then while I was in the Garda station, they rearrested me under Section 11 of the Firearms Act, waving a weapon or something. And then on the morning of the court, Neve Kennedy charged me with 2 more charges, which was Section 2 minor assault. And for the first time, I got the names of the 2 men who are accusing me. And one of them, Sean Grennan, that she said worked for the sheriff, and the other one is Jim Byrne. Not sure who he works for, probably Sean Grennan. But the unusual thing about the name Sean Grennan is it's come up quite a lot, and there has been an individual claiming to be Sean Grennan who has threatened me and my friend and my children, and he claimed to be Sean Grennan. And then 2 weeks ago, a Sean Grennan wrote to me from Bank of Ireland saying, "Hi Lisa, we're cutting off all your bank accounts." So I had looked up this Sean Grennan, and I found a solicitor in Naas and somebody in Blackrock. I don't know who Sean Grennan is, but he seems to be, depending on the claims, a solicitor, a financial person who, I don't know what work he does. He works for Mazars, he works for the city sheriff, and he also seems to work for Bank of Ireland. But what I'm finding very unusual is this Sean Grennan, if he was one of the individuals who was accusing me of assaulting him when I was defending myself against them and my daughter, how and why would he be writing to me in any capacity as an injured party, as alleged injured party? The whole thing is just bizarre. So anyway, this guard, Neve Kennedy, she said to me, "I contacted you a number of weeks ago to inform you of this." And she said this into my face, complete lie. I had rang the DPP and said, "Can you please tell me, have you made your decision yet? Even if you can't tell me what that decision is." And they said, we made the decision in early June and we informed the Garda, investigating Garda, which would be this Niamh Kennedy one, who claimed to arrest me when she didn't. So I contacted the Garda station and I said, you were told in early June and you haven't told me. And the DPP said that you were supposed to tell me. And she kind of on the phone smirkily said, oh, well, I was keeping it as a surprise because I've got 2 more charges for you, which I will give you on the day. So I met her on the day, and then she said, I told you, and I contacted you. And I said, no, Niamh, I contacted you because you had failed to do what the DPP said you were supposed to do and let me know. And you said you were keeping it as a big surprise for me for today. So she served me with these 2 Section 2 assaults. So then I have a Section 11 Firearms Act charge, and now I have these 2 Section 2 assaults. And the DPP had directed it to the district court, which there would be, I think it was 12 months in prison for each of them, and potentially, and or a fine of €1,000. So the jurisdiction, which is which court it would be dealt in, was recommended as being the district court. So I had contacted solicitors. They didn't contact me back, so I was there representing myself. So eventually, for being a bold girl not wearing a mask, I was eventually brought in, and 1 TD turned up. I'd written to 250 of them or whatever. 1 TD turned up, and he was there from 9 o'clock in the morning, and he stayed all day. When it came to me going into court, which is supposedly a public court, the muzzled Gardaí at the front are like guard dogs. They won't let the public in, so they wouldn't allow my daughter in. They wouldn't allow anybody in to the public court because they use COVID now as an excuse to prevent the public accessing and overviewing civil servants' behaviour. But the TD said he was there to observe on behalf of the people, and he got in, thankfully, so he witnessed this. And I went in and I had my files, everything ready, and the judge, Anne Watkins, asked which one was going to, the guard or the sergeant, explain the allegations against me. So there was a kerfuffle where the guard and the sergeant, neither of them seemed to want to tell the judge what the allegations are. The guard wanted the sergeant to. The sergeant said she didn't really know. So the judge was getting irritated, and she called the guard up into the stand, and she asked the guard what were the allegations against me. So the guard went through the Section 2 allegations and said that Sean Grennan accused me of boxing him in the face. And the judge said, where did this happen? And she said, in her house. And the judge said, so she boxed a man in the face in her house? And she said, yes. And she said, what was he doing there? And she said he was repossessing her house. So the judge said, okay, and what about the second one? She said she kicked him in the arse. And the judge said, where did she kick him? And she said, in the arse. And she said, no, where did she kick him in the arse? And she said, in her house. So the judge repeated, so we have Sean Grennan and Jim Byrne, who claimed that she punched one of them in the face and kicked one of them in the arse in her house. And she said yes. And then there was a kerfuffle about, she mentioned the taser, and the judge asked, what was the taser? Was it dangerous? Was I trained to use it? Was I not trained to use it? Could it harm somebody? And the guard, who isn't an expert, faffled around about that. And then out of the blue, she pulled out a Section 3 assault, which is a serious assault, which I'd never been charged for. So the judge then said that she was going to refuse jurisdiction, and she was going to send it to the Central Criminal Court, which is indictable, which means that instead of it being 12 months, each of these now can carry 5 years. So as far as I'm aware now, there's 5 charges. One of them changed, so there's a Section 11 firearms charge, which is I think 7 years or something in prison and a 5,000 fine, and then the Section 3, which I think is 5 years in prison and 5,000 fine, and 2 Section 2s, which are whatever, so I don't know, 20 years in prison collectively, and it's before a jury. So the judge basically refused jurisdiction and sent it to trial by jury in the circuit court. So I asked then if I could address the court, and I was told no, because she had refused jurisdiction. And I was trying to say to her that she had made a decision based on the guard, and I wanted to cross-examine Niamh Kennedy under oath and with a reminder of what perjury is. And the judge said, no, you can't do that. And then I asked for disclosure and my the book of evidence, which the guard said wasn't ready, although I don't know why it wasn't ready, because it's been, whatever amount of months, and she'd already sent it to the DPP, so it wasn't ready. She needed another 6 weeks. And I also asked for a Section 56, which was all the video footage and CCTV footage, and also them with me under duress in what they called an interview, where I felt I was actually explaining that I had been assaulted in my daughter, but that's never been looked at. So the judge wasn't listening, and she was saying that she had no jurisdiction. She didn't want jurisdiction, and she said that I could make those applications. I would get my book of evidence in her court on the 7th of September and my Section 56 application. So we left the court, and as we left the court, I did speak to that Garda Niamh Kennedy, and I asked her why was she willing to be the bullet on the end of a gun, on the end of some hidden hand, and that I asked her to step into her truth. And she kind of pulled her tie off and grabbed her chest and ran off, and very quickly. And I reminded her that she's personally, legally, morally, spiritually, and every other way responsible for her free will choices. And I can't assume or understand why she's allowed herself to be put on the front line on that, but that's up to Niamh Kennedy to answer in her quieter moments or in court eventually. So that's the situation. I have some very serious charges, and they keep pulling out more. But I do have the names of the two, I don't like calling them men, individuals who are alleging. Well, the judge did ask, was there any injured parties? And the guard said nobody was injured. So I'm being accused of assaulting people, but they weren't injured. And I know they weren't injured because the only injured parties there that day were myself and Anu, and then also, in effect, Lily Rose. And by the way, Lily Rose and Anu are not on any court order, and that was their family home, and they stole all of their personal possessions and they traumatised them. And there was no duty of care from Niamh Kennedy or Owen Finnegan when they left Anu lying on the street with the men outside our house, which is a private estate, with the men who had assaulted us moving into our house with our car engine running, and told her to get a solicitor. It was a civil matter. And I would say it is not a civil matter. It's a criminal matter. And criminal law supersedes both family law, whether they admit it or not, and civil law, unless we live in a tyranny. So that's the update. I was hoping to do the trial with Judge Anne Watkins, because I do feel that in observing her over the last 6 months, she is interested in the law, and she kind of eats the head equally of Gardaí, barristers, solicitors, and accused people. Like, she doesn't seem to take any favourites. But I was happy enough to run the trial myself in the district court, and I have to make a decision now on what to do in the circuit court. But I have been very aware and made very aware of the coercive control of that Garda Moody. And I listened with interest to Cormac Brennan's statement, where he has invited everybody to come to the Gardaí, no matter who the perpetrator is, if they're experiencing domestic violence or coercive control. And I think I could have a large debate with him about, I would be very reluctant to tell anybody to go to the Gardaí, especially when, even if the Gardaí did the best jobs in the world, when it's, for example, intimate abuse or coercive control, the family law courts, the Gardaí could interview you and your children today, and tomorrow your abuser can ask the family courts to force the children to be handed over, really endangering them. So there's a big chasm between the family courts and the Gardaí, and there are an awful lot of children and domestic violence victims, men and women, falling down that hole. And that because of that chasm, because it's very hard to get a Garda or a solicitor to answer the question, does criminal law supersede family law or not? They won't answer it. The answer is yes. And the reason why they won't say it is very different, because it keeps the gravy train of the family law courts going behind in-camera rule. It also protects abusers. End of story. So I would say to any of the Gardaí who are getting the phone calls now on foot of the call to action from the Detective Inspector Brennan to contact the Gardaí, I would get them to ask the Gardaí if they have small children, what protection are they going to have when the abuser goes to the family law courts while the investigation is going on and drags them in into their possession, knowing that there has been complaints made. Very, very dangerous. So that's a little update from me, and I want to thank everybody. I did some interviews in the USA and in Canada, and I'm getting an enormous amount of people contacting me in Irish diaspora, and they're very disturbed about what they're seeing happening to our little country that's been utterly annihilated and destroyed at the moment by people who serve the globalists. And I think it's time that we need to clarify with An Garda Síochána, are you working under your oath for the people? Are you part of the people? Or are you now purely being used as corporate enforcers for globalist tyranny or abusers? So I would ask each of the Gardaí to ask themselves that question. It's interesting that I asked Niamh Kennedy on a number of occasions in court, are you working under oath? She wouldn't answer. Because if she was working under oath, she wouldn't be doing what she's doing to myself and my daughters. That's it. Sunday evening. I want to keep it short. I'm extremely tired and exhausted. And as I said, thank you for all of the support. Thank you for the people who turned up to us in court. Thank you for the people who are keeping myself and my daughters up over the water as we've had everything taken. And, we're being held up. We're being held up in the palm of so many hands. And I couldn't do any of this without you. And for my part, I'm going to continue doing my best. I will not consent to bowing down to this tyranny. I feel we're at the front of the bus. But I do know, as I speak here today, and I'm being supported and helped by the kindness of so many people, that for every one of me and my daughters, there are a lot of victims out there who have been annihilated when they went to the courts and to the Gardaí and to TUSLA, and they looked for support and help, and their lives were torn apart and their children were ripped away from them and put into situations out of their reach. Really is time now for Ireland to step up to the plate, and for the Irish men to step forward and start protecting the women and children. And the fact that I am being criminalised for defending my dwelling and my daughters, and the fact that I was left to do it in itself, we're in a pretty bad state in Ireland at the moment. And to my ex-partner, the guard who owned the taser, Glenn, and to Keith, the father of my children, what are you doing? What have you done that you've got involved in this really dark force? What did they promise you? Because whatever it is, it's not going to be worth it in the long run. You're going to have to live it yourself. And if trying to destroy me was your objective, all I'll say is that sort of intention has a habit of boomeranging straight back at the people who sent it. So have a good think about what you're doing. And as always, myself and the girls are ready to forgive. We have forgiven. We accept you for what you are. If you're finding it difficult to live with that, well, then maybe you want to ask yourself, who have you aligned yourself with? What have they promised you? And do you really trust the ultimate liars, that they'll keep you safe in the end? I don't think so. Thank you very much, and have a lovely week, everybody. Bye-bye.